Feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Central Pennsylvania Shrimp Tank, brought to you from our temporary studio here in Dillsburg, Pennsylvania. I'm your host today, Nathan Imboden, and you can catch full replays of these broadcasts on our website at shrimptankpodcast.com/CentralPA. Also, be sure to like us on our Facebook page, go to your favorite podcast app, whether it's iTunes, Apple Podcast, Google Play, and iHeartRadio. Find the Central PA Shrimp Tank. Click that subscribe button so you can stay up to date on all these interviews we're doing. And we talk all the time in our intro about this being a podcast by business owners for business owners, helping you get an MBA in entrepreneurship, hearing from the individuals with the boots on the ground who have lived and breathed the idea of entrepreneurship and business ownership. And right now, we're continuing our series in the crosshairs of Corona as we are still in the midst of these shutdowns. We're now starting to see some relief where counties here in Pennsylvania are moving from red to yellow, which is opening up some opportunities to do business, but it's created a huge disruption. So today, we are interviewing Roger Baumgarten, who is the owner of Roger That Photography. And there's a really cool story behind how that name came to be, and I'm sure we'll let him talk about that as well. But in the photography world, when your business is based on a lot of times either one-on-one interaction or family portraits or events and things like that, when all that gets canceled, you pretty much get shut down. Even though you may be able to work, you may be able to socially distance, people aren't doing as much. So there was a big hit to that industry in general and Roger's business, but he figured out a way to pivot and do something really, really cool, which I'll let him talk about. I believe it's the Front Steps project that he has been championing here in our area. So I'll stop rambling. I'll let Roger come on the show and tell you a little bit more about it. So Roger, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here, brother.
Thanks, Nathan. I appreciate you having me on.
So let's talk a little bit, we'll rewind. We'll talk about maybe the first quarter of 2020 and maybe leading up to that fateful day in March when we get the orders that, boom, everybody needs to shut down if you're not a, quote, life-sustaining business. Kind of talk through that a little bit. What did life look like before that? And then you get hit with that news. What did life look like either right away or shortly after that?
Well, I do a lot of event work. I do a lot of work for corporations, trade associations, a lot of nonprofits. A lot of those nonprofits are in the healthcare arena. So in fact, they were canceling their events even before the shutdowns were issued at the state level. So I kind of got shut down even before everybody else did.
Yeah.
And was looking at pretty much a dry second quarter entirely.
So now that we have, and I know you've been busy, you've kept yourself active.
Yep.
Through this time, but now that we're starting to see at least some movement towards whatever green is, but we won't talk about that. But now that counties are moving to yellow and activities are starting to pick up, have you actually seen at this point anything pick back up, any activity pick back up with bookings, or is that still phased?
No, it's not yet. Summer for me is typically a slower period anyway. So I don't realistically see things really picking up till late in the summer into the early fall. In fact, I still have events being canceled. I do a lot of work for one of the local health systems, and I just had an event at the end of June that they canceled. So
wow. Yeah.
We're still feeling the effects and probably will for some time.
Give us a little bit of a landscape of your organization, your company. That is, how many, do you have multiple employees? Is it just you? What does that look like to get a feel for what this impact has been on the company itself?
It is a completely solo operation.
Okay.
Has been since 2009 when I created the business. And I am the photographer, owner, accountant, trash taker, outer, etc.
The everything. So that's the epitome of what being a small business owner is the one-man band doing it all. So, all right, so this has really impacted you specifically. And what that probably also means is, were you eligible for PPP loans, things like that, to help try to get you through this?
Yeah, we had conversations with our CPA and our financial advisor who both advised to apply for the PPP and the EIDL. I've submitted both. As of now, I've heard nothing. probably going to work through a second bank to see if I can move the PPP along. I think the EIDL, as I recall, was a direct application through the SBA, and
Yeah.
I've heard nothing. Ultimately, whether I get it or not, I feel very grateful that our family's in a position that we can weather this. My wife is still working, and her position is secure.
Yeah.
I'm grateful that I've been given the opportunity as a result of that to be able to do the Front Steps project.
Yeah, so let's talk about that, because you've been, if people are on social media, if they watch the news, I mean, you've been all over those platforms promoting this idea. So talk about that, maybe how it came to be and how you got involved with it.
Well, the credit for it goes to a photographer up in Needham, Massachusetts, outside Boston, named Cara Sulia. She and a local friend who's a marketing professional came up with the idea in mid-March to go around taking pictures of families on the front porches and raise money for a local community organization in Needham, Massachusetts. They got some news coverage of it, and a local friend of mine saw that coverage, sent me a message on Facebook and said, "Hey, Raj, take a look at this." And I took one look at it and said, "I'm shut down for the next 3 months or more. Let's do it here."
Yeah, awesome.
And looked around and specifically tried to find an organization that was doing a lot in response to this crisis. It was going above and beyond, and settled on the Salvation Army.
Awesome. Great. So you are you're taking photos of families, mainly literally on their front steps. So they're coming out at their front door. You're just capturing some photos there. How are you actually raising money then for the charity? I mean, you're the one you mentioned, but these countries, how are they actually raising money for the charity?
Yeah, it's very simple. I take the pictures. No cost to the families for me to take the pictures. So I drive around. I typically will arrange it with one neighborhood coordinator who will recruit all their neighbors. We'll assemble a roster and a logical route through the neighborhood, typically shooting about 5 minutes apart for each family. Take the pictures, post them online on the Roger That Photography website, and then the families can order downloads, prints, refrigerator magnets, and the like with their photos. And then the proceeds from those sales are going to the Salvation Army.
Okay. Is it all proceeds or proceeds after cost? So that essentially.
Yeah, it's pretty much the profits, because I use a third-party vendor to process the prints. So they take their cut and then send me the profit. And that profit is going to the Salvation Army.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. So you had a goal from day one of how much money you wanted to raise. Talk about that and where you're at now, and then maybe where you hope to be in the future, because I know you still have neighborhoods you're trying to get to.
Yeah, well, actually, I cut off the photos as of last Friday.
Okay.
Just to kind of step back and reassess and see where things are going. And also I've been at it for 8+ weeks and just needed a little home time. Wash the windows, mow the lawn, and the like. It has gone beyond my expectations. When I started this, I think it was March 25th was the first shoot I did here in my own neighborhood. And I thought we'd raise maybe $1,000. At the outside, maybe $2,500. And 8 weeks later, based on the sales through the weekend, we are at nearly $10,300 raised for the Salvation Army in Harrisburg.
That's fantastic.
Absolutely has blown me away, the generosity of people in this community.
That's amazing. I'll tell you what, I say all along when, I talked about this on other podcasts about the idea of crisis, I guess it is, in Chinese, and this was told to me by a gentleman who does leadership training, Jeff McCausland's his name. He said the Chinese symbol for crisis is actually two words or two symbols side by side. One represents danger, which would make sense in crisis. The other represents opportunity. And I've said all along, boy, these while these are trying times, are also very opportunistic times to be able to see the good in people coming out and actually stepping up and doing well. And so not just you individually, where you've decided to do a great thing of donating your time and energy to do something good, but also then the generosity of those individuals to say, yeah, maybe it's a challenging time right now, but let's still support this cause. Let's spend some money. Let's do something good. And boy, that's great to hear. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been phenomenal. So just to give you an idea of the scope of it, I'm looking at my numbers. So since March 25th, I've photographed 422 families. in 52 neighborhoods, in 16 municipalities, in 4 counties. And we've got about 2,000 photos posted online from the Front Steps project with, again, the current total is $10,229.
That is fantastic.
So
No,
it's been quite an experience.
I don't think I asked this, and if I missed you mentioning this, I apologize. But are there, not that this is an exclusivity type thing, but were there any other photographers in the area doing this? Or were you the only one? Or were you granted rights to Central Pennsylvania? What did that look like?
No, it was much more informal than that.
Okay.
So there were no rights to be granted. Although I've made a concerted effort pretty much every time I've posted on Instagram, Facebook, and the like, to really give the credit to the photographer up in Boston who started this.
Yeah.
Because without her initiative I think it was around mid-March when she came up with the idea, there's no way it would have taken off to this extent. So she deserves all the credit for making this happen in the first place. I was aware of one photographer in Lancaster County who did it early on. Actually saw some coverage on one of the local TV stations. But that's been it. It didn't evolve the way I thought it would, because my initial hope, in fact, if you go back and look at the news release I put out back in March, my intent was to do it within my own neighborhood and hope that other photographers would do the same in their own neighborhoods and maybe pick a different charity that meant something to them. And it just didn't evolve that way. I ended up getting contacts from people all over the place. I've done more, looking at my notes here, I live on the West Shore of Harrisburg, and I've done more shoots in West Hanover and Lower Paxton townships than all the West Shore townships combined. I would do it in one neighborhood, and a friend who lives in the neighboring neighborhood would hear about it and say, "Oh my goodness, we want to do it here." And I'd start getting messages on Facebook and through Instagram, say, "Hey, come and do our neighborhood." And it just snowballed.
That's fantastic. So, I mean, what do you see coming ahead for you? It sounds like, I mean, I don't know if there's light at the end of the tunnel, or, this slow phased move into yellow and then new green, and probably a newer green later, and, whatever it is. But what do you see as in the future here? I'll just let you talk.
Yeah, I mean, I think for my business, it'll probably be slow through the summer, and then my hope is we'll be back to some semblance of normal by the fall, and then the schedule of the types of events that I cover will be back on again. A lot of it may be changed because, as I mentioned earlier, I do a lot of work for healthcare organizations, nonprofits. I do work for the American Lung Association, the American Heart Association, and the like. And they typically do a lot of spring events, which they had to cancel, but largely because they have high-risk attendees at their events. So they are most likely going to be very cautious moving forward with any large gatherings. So that'll certainly have an impact on my business and bookings, and I'm just going to have to make it work otherwise. Yeah.
Well, and that's all you can do, right? For a lot of people, that's what the reality is. It's just a waiting game because we don't know, and the fact that these counties are moving these different colors doesn't inherently mean people are gonna get up and start doing anything either, or acting differently than they have in the last 8 weeks. So there's still a lot that's yet to be seen on how quickly things kind of snap and bounce, not back, because I don't know what back looks like.
Right.
Move forward, bounce forward, or move ahead. Yeah, it'll be interesting.
And I think we're just going to have to kind of see how that plays out, because just if you follow social media, I think you'll see that there is quite a difference of opinion among the people as to what is happening now and what we should be doing. So I think you'll have some people who will remain very cautious, and others who are just champing at the bit to get out there and mingle again. And whichever one is right, I don't know, but you definitely see that people are coming at it from different angles. So I think we'll just have to kind of wait and see how that plays out.
Yeah. One thing I think we can probably agree on is I don't want to be the one that's in the seat of needing to make those kinds of decisions. I think about our church that we attend. We have a pretty large church here on the West Shore, and they put out a survey trying to gauge the congregation's level of safety and comfort and what they think the church should do and whatnot. And you're right, they had everything from people saying, as soon as you open your doors, I'm coming, to I'm not stepping foot in there until there's a vaccine, and everything in between. And you got to process all that to try to figure out how do you manage that properly, how do you, and do it safely, whatever that is. So, yeah. And
it's hard to gauge because it's hard to say whether your Facebook universe represents a representative sample of the people at large. It's very much I think a select group, and it's really hard to forecast how things will unfold based on that. Yeah, that's true. Very true. Well, you've already, I mean, with your Front Steps project, that in and of itself is fantastic news. But I always like asking in general if there are any other examples you've seen of either businesses, restaurants, different business owners that have also just kind of done something really good during this time period, either it be innovation or giving back or whatever it is. Do you have any other things that come to mind? There's one in particular because it's in my neighborhood. I live in a community here on the West Shore, and we have a pizza shop just up the street from my house. And they have been making regular pizza deliveries, donations to area hospitals and medical facilities for the last 8 weeks.
Can I guess? Can I guess what it is?
Sure.
Is it my man Matt Flinchball and Home Slice?
It is indeed.
Awesome. Well, we're gonna tag that because we want to give shout outs to these organizations as well, what they're doing. Yeah.
He has been. I look at social media every day, and every time I look, they're out there with another stack of pizzas. Yeah. They're taken over to the local hospital to deliver to the staff there. So it's been super to see.
That's awesome. I believe he calls those who are patrons of his business his homies, I think is what he calls it, right? Yeah, that's just.
I'm a homie because I live in his neighborhood. So
you're twice homie, twice
homie squared.
That's great. Well, I'm glad we can laugh at that. What I would normally be laughed at as nerd humor. So thank you for indulging me on that. Well, hey, Roger, thank you for being on the show. And you've done amazing things. You've also been very integral in our business with events that we've done. And we just were so thankful and appreciative of all the work you did for us. So we can vouch for your quality and the level of work you do. But for individuals who, as they are thinking about getting photography work done again, events, maybe they're watching and they're thinking about doing events again in the future and want to learn more about you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, they can contact me through Facebook. It's facebook.com/RogerThatPhotography. And you can message me that way. You can also reach me through my website at RogerThatPhotography.com. And I'm here and available. I do events, I do portrait work, sports, stage, pretty much any kind of photography you need, I'm available.
Awesome. Well, as I said, we've used you, and anybody at home that's watching this, we can vouch for the level of work, the quality of work that Roger does. And when we're talking about small business and entrepreneurship, doesn't get any more authentic than the one guy who's doing it all, who's taking the risk and trying to just better himself in his community. So Roger, thank you again for the example you've been and for stepping out during this time to do something so great for a good cause.
Thank you, Nathan. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, everybody at home, again, thank you so much for tuning in. Check out Roger That Photography, both on Facebook or their webpage. If you're looking for somebody to do an event or just get some portraits done, whatever it might be sure to check them out. Help continue to support small businesses based here in Central Pennsylvania. We're going to continue these stories because there's a lot of both challenging but also really good things that are going on right now. We want to bring that message to you. So stay tuned coming up next week for another episode of the Central PA Shrimp Tank. We'll see y'all later.
I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank.